r/ask Reddit. What things are completely obsolete today that were 100% necessary 70 years ago? Slide rule for an engineering degree. Fall 1974. My freshman chemistry lab workbook had a section on how to use a slider rule. We didn't use them, but it was still so recent the books hadn't been updated. Loved my Texas Instruments Senior 16-2 encyclopedia sets. It used to be the only reference for learning about most things. Now, everyone has the whole of human knowledge in the palm of their hands. Except people in rural areas. It's faster to consult my grandma's 1980s encyclopedia than it is to Google if some battle was World War I or World War II. Her DSL is slower than the dial-up I had in the city 20 years ago. Iron lung, oh wait shit. Iron lungs have almost completely fallen out of use. I've read about a handful of old people who still use them. But today there are wearable breathing devices that almost look like a suit of chest armor. They accomplish the same purpose as an iron lung, but the patient can move around more freely. Carbon paper in an office row kicked off a swarm of responses, and you all are of course correct. What I was thinking of, and totally failed to describe, are the old 8.5x11 sheets of carbon black that you placed between two sheets of white paper and rolled it into a typewriter. I hope no one is still having to contend with that stuff. Thank God. Holy shit. Of anything I had to deal with, that was a giant pain in the ass. It was carbon paper. I worked in an office that printed off thousands of sheets in triplicate carbon paper. It takes too long to separate that by hand, so we had a machine to separate it called a decollator. I have no idea if I'm spelling that properly. The problem with that machine was it was incredibly dangerous. Because when you separate thousands of sheets of carbon paper in an all-metal machine, the amount of static electricity it would build up was enough to kill a person if you touched it. So while it was separating, you had to spend all your time touching the machine to ground it out so no charge could build up, which was really boring. I rigged up a string attached to a ring which I wore while sitting and having a coffee as the machine ran. But it was an awful thing to stand next to. It was loud. The air was nasty. Your clothes would get carbon bits on them all the time. Hated it. As a preface, 70 years ago was 1949, not 1930. Most office equipment, adding machine, typewriter, mimeograph machine, devices to collate reports. If you read the thread, apparently everyone uses typewriters still. I don't get it. I didn't read it all, but I'll believe you. And I'm equally puzzled. I threw away my typewriter 10 years ago. No thrift store in town would take it. Phone books, cause you know, no internet cheats. Now when the phone book comes, it goes straight to the recycling bin. The Negro Motorist Green Book was an essential travel guide for black motorists on where it was always not safe for them to go. The gay community had a pink book that was similar. An older friend in grad school used to consult it when he traveled. Most queer people still do a version of this, at least for international travel. Narrowed down my wife and my honeymoon destinations considerably. Sanitary belts. So glad. The invention of the sticky backing on menstrual pads improved women's lives dramatically. People thinking 70 years ago was 1850. Payphones. With basically everyone having a phone in their pocket, we no longer need these on every corner. Man, as a teenager without a cell phone, the payphone at my school was essential. And it was only 5 years ago. I just never realized it was so obsolete for the rest of the world. Rural school? Sorta. Small town but close to a large city. It was a private school but very old, so the phones were probably there for a while before students had cell phones. The ducking trig tables in the back of any engineering textbook. Leaded gasoline, aka tetrathalide. My local BP carries 100 low lead. I thinks it's like $7 a gallon. Do you live in Alaska? Planes are allowed to land on roads there, and 100 LL is avgas for planes. Some people land on the roads then taxi up to the pump. Fountain pens. Don't tell r/fountain pens, but they're outdated. There are more reliable and cheaper options that will not stain your hands. Also, who writes anymore? Yes, I have 12 fountain pens. Don't tell that to Germany. They make their kids learn to write using fountain pens. They even use them for math. I have ein fountain pen. You have Zwei fountain pen. Zusammen we have Drei fountain pen. Greg and Pittman shorthand. Although you can make a living now by reading old shorthand notes. My grandma used to take dictation in shorthand. Mimeograph machines. Remember smelling those handouts back in school and getting a bit of a buzz? That's because the ink was thinned with an alcohol thinning agent to save money. I actually owned a mimeograph machine when I was 17. I was going to make an underground newspaper. You are thinking of a spirit duplicator or ditto machine. A mimeograph used a semi-permeable membrane which allowed, usually black, ink to pass through where struck by a typewriter key. A spirit duplicator produced copies by diluting the, usually blue, ink on the back of a non-permeable sheet. I love that smell. Nice try, BuzzFeed. Encyclopedias. I mean, yeah, you do see people with a set in their house or a library. However, you don't see many people buying them. Considerably, they are extremely expensive and most of the information can be out of date. Also, the internet has also made them obsolete since the internet can pretty much be an encyclopedia at the click of a button. I remember getting my Funk and Wagnalls encyclopedia set 1 volume a week from my grocery store. It was great. So much knowledge filling my bookshelf. A 1949 calendar. I'm pretty sure calendars are exactly the same every like 11 years or something, so in 2024 you could use it. Telephone switchboard operators. My dad remembers his old number, Scotia 49, and the nice lady who connected their calls. Milkman. They still exist apparently. A guy I work with and my wife's aunt get milk delivered by a milkman. But I get what you're saying. If there was no milkman, they'd still be able to acquire milk somewhere. Now you've got your Amazon, and the milkman's come back. Having 10 kids in case most of them die of polio. Anti-vaxxers are on the case. Headlight switch on the floor. Stopping at a gas station to ask for directions. I don't know about the second one. I worked at a gas station just a couple years ago and there were plenty of people asking for directions. If you ever need to stop and get directions, I recommend a pizzeria or anywhere else that offers delivery. Travel agents. If you wanted to book some sort of vacation for you or your family, you likely needed one. But now with how easy it is to do it yourself, they are dying out. But they're not completely obsolete. Yep, literally just booked my honeymoon via travel agent. It was so easy and she searched for the best and cheapest flights for us. Travel agents are completely different now than they used to be. They used to just book you your flight and hotel and rental car and be done with it. Now they are full service. They book all of your activities and find you the cool local non-touristy things. And the best local restaurants catered to your tastes and tell you what to expect because they've been there too. Typewriters. How do you make a professional looking and perfectly legible letter done in a reasonable length of time using only handwriting? Yes, I understand there are some handwriting fans out there that say you can do it, but do you want to do that at the rate of 60-80 WPM for 8 hours a day? I don't think so. Typewriters seem to be making a comeback. Not just from hipsters writing shitty manuscripts in Starbucks, but agencies that want non-digital records. Pennies. Except if you need a weapon and your only other tool is a sock. Ashtrays in public places. Bomb shelters and the like. Telegrams. Typewriters. Cathode ray tube for TVs. Gramophones. Braille cream. Milk bottle racks for daily milk deliveries. Evaporative coolers. Washboards. etc. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.